Well, I'm a bougie person. I'm just playing.
Oh Lord.
Now let me rephrase.
No. We'll jump into that too.
No. I'm fake. Let me rephrase. I'm fake bougie.
You fake bougie?
Because I don't dress bougie. I don't. When I say fake bougie, I like I don't know, like went out in the world and realized that you had advantages that a lot of people didn't have.
Oh, like, my privilege.
Well, yeah, okay, but like, like you just said the most like basic name. That's what it was. That word. But because when I was growing up, I'm a military brat. My dad's a colonel. My mom's a doctor. Growing up, I really didn't realize how much advantages that had. Expectations to go to college was just already there. All those different things. So I was talking to my line brother.
What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now. And yo, I got my man, Philip Wilkerson, on the line today. We're going to have a really interesting, nuanced, and dynamic conversation about a lot of different subjects. But first and foremost, let me let you know who the brother is. He's a husband. He's a father of 2 boys. He works in higher ed, and he lives in Northern Virginia.
Yes, Northern.
But see, and I'm, it's funny, you specified that in the intro, and what's funny about that, that's an element of bougie that a lot of people don't like to point out, but folks that are in the know understand the difference between Virginia and Northern Virginia. And it's funny, like folks that I interact with, the people that I meet that are from Virginia, they always specify, no, Northern Virginia.
Well, but they say other places too. So I'm gonna take away the bouginess. They say 757. I'm from the Tidewater. I'm from Richmond. They say that, and I normally say Northern Virginia too because I know the opposite. A lot of people claim DC, and that's not an accurate representation. Like I'm not from DC. But I'm trying to tell them.
Hold up. But see, I gotta call a spade though. Yeah. Yes, the Tidewater, 757, all of that, Newport News, Hampton Roads. We understand. We understand Richmond. We understand all of that. But when you say Northern Virginia, folks that are in the know understand what you're saying. Northern Virginia is the element of bougie. There's nothing non-bougie associated with the term Northern Virginia.
Well, I'm a bougie person. I'm just playing.
Oh Lord.
Now let me rephrase.
No. We'll jump into that too.
No. I'm fake. Let me rephrase. I'm fake bougie.
You fake bougie?
Because I don't dress bougie. I don't. When I say fake bougie, I like I don't know, like went out in the world and realized that you had advantages that a lot of people didn't have.
Oh, like, my privilege?
Well, yeah, okay, but like, like you just said the most like basic name. That's what it was. That word. But because when I was growing up, I'm a military brat. My dad's a colonel. My mom's a doctor. Growing up, I really didn't realize how much advantages that had. Expectations to go to college was just already there. All those different things. So I was talking to my line brother the other day, best fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. You didn't say that. Hold up. Stop. See, we hadn't finished the intro because we got off on this Northern Virginia tangent, and you had to jump into the Alpha Phi Alpha thing, because Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is actually the man behind Black Fathers Now. But and I will say though, I've interviewed a lot of alphas, and to the other alphas that I've interviewed, some of them that I'm really close to, Philip sent me a message the other day and it was like, I'm going to be your favorite alpha. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. You got a lot of competition out there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look, you can be competitive all you want. Your Alpha Phi Alpha is all good and everything. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is in the building. We run this show. We choose to bring some of y'all on just to get a little diversity of approach. But that's good. And also, I can't hate because I told you earlier before we got on this that my father is one of the bros. So one of your bros. We all make choices in life.
There you go. And let me finish the intro real quick and then we'll jump into it. So I mentioned all of that. He's also the creator of Positive Filter, which is a dynamic podcast that if you've been in the podcast space, you've probably come across it somewhere. And he's a really interesting brother. And one of the things we're also going to dive into, and this is actually interesting because not too long ago, this new show popped up on television called Mixedish. And he's actually part of this whole equation is he's raising some kids who actually fit the dynamic of being the main characters of this show, Mixedish. So we're going to really kind of dive into a lot of that. But ladies and gentlemen, because the ladies listen to, that are paying attention to this whole thing and listening to Black Fathers Now, let's welcome my man, Philip Wilkerson. What's up, brother?
Man, it's an honor. First of all, as I said earlier, we tried to record this earlier. And due to my fault, we had a lot of mistakes, but I literally put in my mind, I was like, I am not letting this opportunity to be on your podcast and share knowledge. I love your show. And I was like, I'm not letting it go. So I bothered him. I said, yo, my bad. Let me get on it. I'll fix it. And like I said, it wasn't because, honestly, it wasn't because, when you think of cross promotion, I'm trying to promote. No, it was like literally the conversation that we had before we got cut off was just really good. And as I said, before we even got on this podcast, I think we established a friendship, and I love listening to your show. So I'm so happy that I got myself together. I got a haircut. I got all this stuff.
Look. So for those listening via audio, the brother got a haircut. For those that are seeing,
I didn't know it was video.
It's video. It's video too. It's gonna be on YouTube and so audio and video. So we got it all.
I got shape up everything. Look at that.
Oh Lord, here we go. Them doggone alphas. Look at
you. But and I'll just touch upon the privilege part because I know when I go back into the main part about the mixes. But one of the things that was very apparent, and you say bouginess, and I would say unofficial or maybe black eliteness, is I didn't realize what privileges I had until I went out in the world. So, for instance, I was in a bubble. I'm a military brat, and my dad's a military colonel. My mom's a doctor. In the military base, we have all kinds of different people. You kind of stay in a little community. And I went through private school growing up, a private Christian school, and I really didn't feel like I got exposure to the world outside that fence, that protected fence, until I went to public high school for the first time. And I'd like to say that was like hitting a wall. Like, welcome to the world. Welcome to the non-monolithic view of black people. First time I started getting teased and called "you act like a white boy" kind of things. I didn't
hold on 2 seconds. How old are you currently?
34.
34. So you were kind of coming of age in the midst of the Fresh Prince as well. So I bet there was a Carlton reference or two.
Of two, I mean, literally, the whole dance thing.
Oh, man. Gotcha.
But the thing is, it's continued on because as I met more brothers within Alpha from different walks of life, even my line brothers. And I remember one time coming up and I said something like, yeah, man, my mom wants my kids to join Jack and Jill. And he was like, oh, Jack and Jill. I was like, what's so special about that, John? And he was like, that's Jack and Jill, like whatever. And then additionally, I said something to another person recently. My mom's is always trying to invite me to these Lynx dinners. And they were like, ooh, the Lynx, ooh. And I was like, what is this? And then I realized that there was things I was involved in or just in my life that was not accessible to many other black people growing up. It was almost like realizing eliteness. And I'm about to read a new book called The Black Elite or something like that.
Hold on, I bet you it's called Our Kind of People.
That's it. I just got the book on Amazon, and I want to dive into that because I didn't realize how much privilege I had. For instance, my grandfather, he's a Kappa, so I'm all over the place. He was a college-educated brother from the 1940s. Doctor, he was Dr. James, known throughout the city of Charlotte. I went to his funeral. When he passed away, the whole city shut down for him. And I didn't realize, like, this literally, I could probably write a book on being in, I'm not going to say elite class, but when you brought up the bougie thing, I just never thought about that and how I walk and how I talk, and maybe the experiences I have were the same typical experiences of many people of color. So I think that was just something kind of a side tangent what, kind of that side tangent that came from the bougie comment about
Northern Virginia.
But it's just what I was.
But dig this though, man. And I think this is interesting, man. The podcast platform, in the sense of I come with a little bit of a format, but I allow things to kind of materialize and kind of evolve, right? And it's really ironic because that part of your story I never really heard about, like the background of your father being in the military, your mom being a physician, the concept of growing up, the whole concept of Jack and Jill and Lynx and all of that. And I made and it's funny, I made the reference to Mixed-ish because we're talking about, being in an interracial marriage and raising biracial kids you are. But then it's funny, Mixed-ish is a spinoff of Blackish. And the experience in Blackish is, in essence, kids who are seemingly in this privileged bubble as African Americans and helping them to kind of navigate that. And it's funny how all of these things kind of come full circle, because at the end of the day, that was kind of your reality. And you and I have some other connections in regards to that we'll dive into in a little bit. But before we get into that, I always start off with letting the brothers give shout outs, because again, who are you? Yeah, that's right. Who are you without your village, without your support system? So before we get started and we get into, Philip Wilkerson, tell us a little bit about your support system and give us your shout outs, man, so that we can make sure those get due credit.
Quite interesting. Let me just, think of my shout outs I have behind me. I write out the list and roles and identity that I have in my life. And I think they kind of align with my shout outs. So I think that it's kind of helpful for me to just kind of stay structured. So first and foremost, I'm a husband first. That's my top role in my life. And so I like to give a shout out to my wife, Maggie. She's been in my life since I was 18 years old. High school sweetheart, all the way through college, all the way through adulthood. I tell her every time, we got a hashtag for her, prayers for Maggie. And nothing's wrong with her. There's no prayers because she is sick. No, it's prayers because she's dealing with me. So, and I got her too. I make a joke. I got her when I was 18 before she knew what else was available in the world. So,
wow.
So shout out to her and being a wonderful mom, just person, wife, everything. Father is my second role. Obviously, I put this in order. Husband is the foundation and make sure we have a good marriage, but father is very next to me. And I have two boys, Bennett and Miles. Bennett is 4.5, Miles is 1.5. They're like literally mini clones of me in different aspects of energy level, just quirkiness, dorkiness, whatever you want to call it. My little future alphas, JK, they can be whatever they want, honestly, as long as they're educated. Like they could be me for all I care, as long as they pursue their career goals and things like that. But they're my world, and I try to make sure that I, no matter what I do in these other roles, that I don't fall away from them. That's another shout out. And then lastly, I would say for the podcast listeners, so we can get on with the episode. My last main role is friend. Friendships are very important to me. My friendships, my brotherhood, obviously they overlap. So my friendships with my fraternity brothers, but also particularly my friendships with my best friend, Hillard McMorris. I'll probably send him this episode, but he's been my best friend since 10th grade. And I met him in a 10th grade leadership class for all Black men. And I found that space for young Black men was super helpful, changed my life. I still keep in touch with Mark Holbrook, who had that class. But because of that class, I was able to meet my best friend, Hillard McMorris, and he's a brother. I told him he was my frat bro before frat, but he's not frat at all. But I'm saying that deepness and that brotherhood, he taught me what that was before I needed a fraternity. So shout out to him. And he helped me get started with my podcast. When I was nervous to do it, he said, yo, I'll help you. And so he was on my earlier episodes, bouncing ideas. And it gave me a comfort to talk because I had him supporting me with my early episodes. And he jumps in every now and then when I need him. We're about to link up together for a wedding, so I'll make sure we record something then too. But that's a big shout out. And then everyone else, I can go down the list of everyone else in my life. I got so many friends and people, but just for the podcast's sake, I just want to stop there and get ready for the episode. But those are my shout outs.
Awesome. And I appreciate you for doing that. And most importantly, I think it's always good to put that up front because, again, we like to get credit and we like to do our thing and we like to shine. But a lot of times we don't realize, or people on the outside don't realize, that we're only shining because of those that are part of our team, right? I'm only as good as my team. I'm only as good as those that support me. And I'm only as good as those that are helping me to move forward and show me the way and guide the light for me to go forward. So
100%.
Definitely, we got to always give shouts out.
I mean, I learned, I like to study positive well-being and stuff, but literally you're the average of the 5 people that are most involved in your life. Mm-hmm. So in regards to that team, like my team, those people I just listed, my friends, they elevate me because they're my average. So my average is A+. I'm getting A+ in friendship. I may get a C- on my haircut skills or all that, but I'm an A+ in my relationship building and my relationship maintaining. Those relationships are super important to me.
Awesome. Well, and so that now, because you've kind of given us a little bit of a background in regards to your story, which was kind of interesting, I want us to kind of dive into this whole concept of you understanding your reality and coming into your own from the standpoint of this whole concept of elite privilege, the talented 10th. And what's interesting, and this is a very transparent and open conversation, how that leads you down the road now in regards to, to marriage and to kids. Was there a point in which, because you were in this particular bucket, that you felt like maybe I didn't connect with, like people always thought that I wasn't black enough for the black folks, or, all of that kind of stuff.
What lyric was that? That's from a song. I wasn't black enough. I think it's a J. Cole song. I don't know.
It's somebody.
I love Cole. So
yeah. But the reality is, it's interesting. After you mentioned that stuff, I was like, let's kind of pivot a little bit and really start there because, and I'll give you a little bit more background on me as well. So you mentioned the concept of Jack and Jill and fraternities and sororities and my, grandparents going to college. I grew up in a situation in which I grew up in Jack and Jill, right? So, and we're currently in Jack and Jill now here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Yes. And so I grew up in Jack and Jill in Augusta, Georgia. My grandparents, 3 out of 4 of my grandparents went to college. Yes. 2 out of 4 ended up with master's degrees, right? And so and this was in the 40s and 50s, black people in Georgia, right? And my grandfather that didn't go to college was drafted in World War II. So he served 30 years in the military, retired as a command sergeant major, all of that. So education has been big for my family from the jump. And it's been one of those things where I grew up in a household in which it was not if you're going to college, it was the notion of where are you going to go to school? What do you want to major? I mean, even from the age of... And then
what job you going to get afterwards to make money?
There you go. From the age 5, 6, 7, it was never a if you. No, it was like, what school do you like? I went to Hampton, or I went to Howard, or I went to Morehouse, or I went to, Augusta State or Fort Valley State, or I went to this, or I went to that, Payne College. These were the conversations that were happening in my household. But what was interesting, though, was I also grew up in a household where, yes, we were in Jack and Jill because one of my grandmothers was the charter member of the chapter in Augusta, right? Yes. So that's why we were in it. But the reality was I didn't grow up with financial privilege. You know what I'm saying?
I had a combination.
Yeah. See, the flip side of it was I grew up in a situation in which also within my household, my father struggled with drug addiction. And so to that point, financially, we never were really wealthy. We did some of the stuff that some of the wealthy people did, in the sense that we were in Jack and Jill. My parents were in fraternities and sororities, and grandparents had degrees and all of that. Yeah. But financially, we were far from wealthy. You know what I'm saying? And so it was. Yeah. So I had kind of like this duality in a sense of I saw privilege, but then I also didn't live privilege. Yes. And so it was kind of a balance there. But where you're coming from, I can see and understand how that can be challenging because I was basically able to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I was able to see that the overwhelming majority of black folks did not have this privileged experience. Yeah. And so I was able to connect, whereas by you being both in the financially privileged and in the socially privileged bucket, you didn't have 1 foot in to be able to connect with a whole lot of us at that particular moment. Am I kind of gathering that?
And let me rephrase it. When I say us too, let's say the monolithic part, like
the monolithic, black.
Because I was definitely in black spaces. There was never a time where I was in a lot of majority black spaces, but there were a majority of black spaces of
privilege.
Like, privilege. Yeah. I love that.
And I like the whole concept of really understanding that and unpacking that a little bit, because as we think about the black experience, most of us, if we did not have that, we think that everybody grew up one way. Right. Yes. There's not one monolithic black experience. I mean, you do have black folks who grow up in wealthy, multi-million-dollar homes and this and that and fly private jets and all of that. Like you do have black folks who financially or from a socioeconomic perspective are struggling. Right. They come from a broken place. And so we have all of that. And these are all components that make up this whole community. And so we sometimes think that someone is more or less black based on their upbringing or their experience. 100%. And again, I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm going to really turn it over to you in a second to kind of really break down your story a little bit.
No, you got it. You're nailing a lot of stuff.
But the whole thing is, and I mentioned the example of Carlton from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or we mentioned the concept of Blackish, how sometimes within our community, we're not openly accepting of brothers who maybe don't have the same experience, which then causes us from an identity perspective to not be able to look in the mirror and feel like I'm black. And and I want you to kind of dive into your story a little bit and maybe how growing up you struggled with that. And I think the whole point of me wanting you to really dive into this is to maybe help somebody else who may be dealing with it, because there's some brothers who are growing up with kids that are going to be considered privileged, but then on the flip side, maybe we're treating someone who might be considered privileged as an outcast, and we need to stop that because we're all black nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay. I love it, man. I had listed out so many things. So one I like to say is that in regards to the Carlton reference, right? I hate the quote, the OJ one that says, "I'm not black, I'm OJ." No, OJ, you're black. And also additionally, it don't matter if you got $1 million or you got $2. The world sees me as black, and you'll get pulled over by the police. I remember a particular episode of Fresh Prince where Carlton faced a policeman harassing him. Mm-hmm. And he was like, wow, this is like, no matter how privileged I am in Bel-Air, I'm a black person now, so I would say it don't matter what you are, what you think you are, the policeman is going to see a black man. So like, and that's like the real raw part about like, don't think that I'm less black than you. Well, I know that you may think I'm less black, but I know officer, whenever he pulls me over, he don't care. He's not going to see your bank account. He's going to see a black man in the car. Absolutely. So it don't matter how much money you have. Additionally, with privilege, generational privilege, is that, you got to give a lot of shout outs to people. I'm seeing the big system of, systemic, or I hate to say systemic, organized racism, classism, whatever, is that it's generational generation. So the expectation of being successful and education and all that, it just keeps on going to the next generation. It was laid with the foundation of early. So we're going to say eliteness. I mean, that started off the break with my grandfather, right? Mm-hmm. He grew, I think he was probably the last person that grew up like legit poor in Jacksonville. And he, did his thing, educated his sister. His sister got a master's, was a school teacher. Because back in those days, if you were a female that was really educated, they pigeonholed you into nursing or education.
Being a teacher. Yep, being a teacher.
Now, I mean,
and hold on, you got to stop there too, though. Within, you're talking 40, 50, 60 years ago, there was high esteem for black educators.
Yes,
and
100%.
so because even a couple of my grandparents, the ones that actually went and got master's degrees, they actually worked in education. And, in Augusta, Georgia, they were very highly regarded and highly esteemed. Because within the black community, yes, you could be a doctor, yes, you could be a lawyer, but educators were looked at on that same level 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's only recently that we've kind of diminished the role of education, and that's because we tie everybody's value into the economics of what your salary is. So somebody making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, we don't look at, and this is wrong, but a lot of people don't look at them as being as valuable as the person who's the engineer who might make $120 or $130. You know what I'm saying? And so
100%. As an education, I have that too. I am a farmer of people. I plant seeds and those seeds grow. as an educator. So I don't care how much money I make. My job is just as important as anyone else. And like you said, foundationally, a few of our jewels, as they say, our founders were educators themselves.
Absolutely.
So you know the importance of education. But just going back to that point, generationally, my great aunt, she did her thing as a teacher. My grandfather was a college-educated doctor. And then you just see that trickle effect. My grandfather had, 7 kids, and all of them did something, in different areas of education, professors, doctors, whatever. So boom, boom, boom. So that literally, like you said, it's not a matter of what is when and how, you're going to college. And then that's my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, you combine that. My dad grew up, he would have, his parents would have been together, but my grandfather passed away really early. It wasn't nothing, like he didn't leave, or he was a great man. He was well established in the community. He just died early when my dad was only 11 years old. And my grandma was really strict on him, and he went to VMI. He was one of the first 4 African Americans to go to VMI. Wow. So he paved the way, and it's just like boom, boom, boom. So it's like, I grew up with this, and I'm just like, I didn't realize, like when you're a kid growing up, you don't realize how impactful, how, like you say, wow, I didn't think that was wow. It's like, oh, just my dad went to VMI, right? My dad just, like, you don't think about the big picture. But you laid the foundation. You said it didn't become apparent of this generational advantage that I have until I met people that did not have that same generational privilege. Like, whether they were the first kid to go to college, first kid to go to this, all that. And that's what really took a toll on me, realizing
that you were different.
That was different. I never got called acting white before until high school.
So hold on. So prior to that, you in essence were living in a bubble, right?
100%.
You 100.
Yeah, and a diverse bubble though, because military bases are pretty diverse.
But the fact that you were living in a bubble, and I think that's for, that goes, and this is a little bit different, but that goes to the notion of why I really encourage people to travel, to experience, have things that, are outside of their norm, and really interact with folks who might be totally different from you. Because if given, left to our own devices, we'll default into just doing what we do, staying in our bubble and digging our heels in and being more of that and never growing and developing. And so to your point, because of it, and I think this is when you ended up going to public school, when you finally had that first aha moment that I'm different.
Or, big case point. It was like hitting a wall. And it was, I was like, this is how I've always been. And like you said, I wasn't in all white spaces all the time. Sometimes I was in all black spaces, but with just all black spaces of Jack and Jill, you know what I'm saying? And keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. And it just continued on, just quite honestly, even continued on, even into my process in Alpha, just being a little bit different than my line brothers, because our line brothers come from many different experiences too. And I am also a historian. I do a lot of reading. I never really connected to reading as an adult, because usually I just read, but didn't really connect it. But I read a long time ago, Souls of Black Folks.
Yes.
And W.E. Du Bois spoke about that.
The Talented Tenth.
Not the Talented Tenth, but the other one, the two souls. Having the duality, the two consciousness, and always flipping it on and off. There's two consciousness of blackness. And it's exhausting, quite honestly, to feel like you have to be this way and that way. It takes work rather than just be. And how many times do we have others where, I'm not saying white guys have to do this, but white people, where they just be. But for black males, we have to be a black male professionally. We have to be a black male with our boys. We have to be a black male here in these different pockets. And it's exhausting when you don't let it just ride. You know what I'm saying?
You said something there that makes me think about the concept of code switching, right?
Oh, yes.
And, but see, most people use code switching with the context, or in the context of, black in a non-black space. You're talking about code switching within the black community, meaning I have to. Yeah, but it's interesting because very few people actually open up and address that whole concept of code switching internally, not code switching when you go to the place where you're the only black face in the room and all of that. But no, code switching when when you look around and ain't nothing but black folks, you're code switching there. But then you're in another black environment, you have to code switch and turn it on and turn it off. And so to me, that is a very interesting concept that, again, I don't think many people verbalize, because if that's not your personal experience or your personal, journey, then you don't see that as something that's worthy of being talked about. But the reality is that's something that a lot of people face.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm in my head a lot. I think what helps me is that counseling. So my awareness of lots of things has heightened, but I didn't have that. So like when I was going through this angst in high school, I didn't have, so I think I'm really blessed that I got a counseling degree to process this now. But, I didn't have that processing skill. So it just manifests itself in negative behavior, meaning trying to act a certain way and, thinking that like you got to drink and smoke and act stupid and act a fool and just like, I don't know, not doing well on academics on purpose. It was just crazy. It was just a bad situation. And I think I got out of it recently. I mean, not recently, I got out of it in college, because I get to college, it's like that acting out, trying to behave, like act a certain way in high school is not healthy, and it's also not productive. So I acted out of it in college and, try to get my grades together and be myself. And then, and also I had the support of my girlfriend for a long time. And then just professionally, it's just that way too. But I would say if I had a time machine, I wish I could just take this processing mindset and say, sit with yourself, sit with your own self and learn about the bigger systems, learn about what's really going on, learn about what are you sacrificing when you're doing this code switching, and how impactful that is onto your well-being, how impactful that is onto your self-esteem, your confidence, your goals, like being a public speaker and speaking up. You're nervous to do that because you don't want to be teased or made fun of and things like that. So I wish I could just go back in a time machine and do that. But now I don't have a time machine. So my responsibility is, if I can't go in a time machine and do it for myself, I have now the opportunity to do it for my boys and make sure that they're aware of that code. I mean, I guess code switching, but they're aware of that duality and that they're prepared for that duality. And that's kind of what we were talking about with the episode that before it got cut off last time, was that, my main responsibility is I experienced a lot of that angst. And I can't control how the world views my boys. That's going to happen. I can't control the world, but I can help and give my sons the skills, the processing skills, to equip them to at least have discussions about it, to how to read about it, how to really look deeper into it, and also how to like just be and be okay with being, and know that when you be, not necessarily is it going to be light, I usually say a lot of the conflict happens as I have a viewpoint. I have these identities of myself. Society has a viewpoint of me, and not all the time do they mesh together. Sometimes they butt heads.
Absolutely.
And you have to be so firm in yourself that when it butt heads, you're like, I don't care. I am not going to do this to fit. Like at a certain point, I'm going to do this and be myself, be true. Because if I try to fit a mold of these different identities that someone has for me, it's not going to be it's not going to lead to good things for your well-being.
Dude, and I'm going to tell you what's interesting about that. You finally got around to it, because at the end of the day, dealing with other people is external, right?
Yeah.
We need to deal with other people, but we first need to learn how to deal with ourselves.
Yes.
That's the key. We need to learn how to love ourselves. We need to learn how to accept ourselves, good, bad, ugly, the great stuff that you want everybody to see, but this stuff that you pray nobody finds out about, all of these things. We have to come to that realization that we are okay. We are uniquely and specially made. We bring value into the world, and I love myself. I don't know what your belief structure is and everything, but, from a Christian perspective, it's always the whole concept of, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, but the problem is, what happens when you don't love yourself?
Yeah, you can't give it to your neighbors.
You can't give it to your neighbor. And so to that point is, the concept of, as we impact the lives of other people, we have to first get individuals to learn how to love themselves, irregardless of how people respond to it, because you cannot control how somebody responds to you. You can't control how somebody takes what you say, you know, even as a communicator, as a speaker, as a podcaster, you know, I put information out there, right?
Yeah,
and I try to carefully construct it so that there's minimal chance for it to be misunderstood or misconstrued or taken out of context. But at the end of the day, I have zero control over how somebody takes any message that I present from a stage or, you know, over the airwaves. But I can control how I present that, and I can control the conviction and the intention in which I put it out there. That's what I have control over. And so I think as it pertains to us loving ourselves, because I think that's step one. Once you fully love yourself, then you have the ability to step out there and, you know, battle the dragons and the fire that's coming at you. Because the thing is, it's coming, right? Yeah. But if you don't love yourself and you're not coming from a place of consistency, of authenticity, there's no way for you to effectively go out and fight and win.
No, and not at all. I mean, it just goes down to the old age adage. When you're on an airplane and they always say, put your mask on before you put someone else's, especially as a father for your kids, right? You know, you can't take care of your kids if you're not well. And I've had times where I wasn't well, depressed, anxious, having a hard time, and it made me a sucky father. And so until I addressed the stress within myself, I could not be effective. And so, and that just goes with all the different things, with identity, goes with feeling left out, feeling a sense of not belonging. Until you figure out yourself, until you figure out your goals and what makes you happy and what drives you, your purpose, then you can help the next person. Then you can educate, then you can inspire, then you can, you know, so you need to know, if you want to inspire someone else, you got to figure out what inspires you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to heal someone else and you want to be a healer, you got to heal the wounds that you have, because we all have it. So you got to heal your own wounds before you can tend to others. So I realized very early on this struggle with race and all that stuff and identity, you know, early on as a father, that if I don't check this or process this or work on it or read about it, talk about it, it's gonna bleed over, and it's gonna affect how my kids view themselves and their identities. So.
And that, you know, that's it's interesting, because, you know, you mentioned this concept of growing up, your struggle with fitting in within folks that you should automatically be able to fit in with. Just, you know, that was a struggle. And I want to, you know, ask you something, and you kind of just open up and go any direction that you'd like to go with it. You know, you mentioned that, you know, we mentioned in the intro that, you know, your kids are biracial, meaning that you're married, and your wife, Maggie, is white. She's white. She's white. Yeah, she's white, right?
She's white.
She's white. Yeah. And so she's white. But you all started dating, you mentioned, in high school, correct?
Correct.
Right. And so you all connecting on the front end, you know, was that a scenario in which you felt more, based off of your experiences and based off the worlds that you were in and the acceptance from some and the lack of acceptance from others? Okay. Do you feel like, you know, you and Maggie connected because of your identity and your understanding, or was it on some other different level?
Different level. So, I mean, I've been, you know, involved relationship-wise with Black, white, and other. So, so it wasn't a matter of just straight race. But while I do find her obviously very attractive, and that's what attraction was there, but it wasn't like I had a type. I don't have no type. Okay. What I was mainly attracted to with Maggie, which is still to this day, was we started off as a friendship. I remember before we started dating, we got each other's AIM, Ilfil 500, Magala 16. That's hers. And, I just remember setting my alert that every time she was online, I would talk to her. And it was more like I didn't see her. It wasn't physically. That's what really was weird. It's like almost pre
video chats and all that stuff. Yeah.
So like literally it was just words and encouragement and goal setting. And, you know, I was kind of a lost teenager, and it was just someone that like wanted to invest in me. You know, like I remember I went to Bowie State and she went to JMU. And I was going to say before, I always put this on the record, so this is on record too. I got to talk about the grades and being academic, I got waitlisted by JMU. The reason why I got waitlisted is because in high school, my grades was trash, as earlier. Okay. Maggie got into JMU off the break.
Okay.
We went to rival high schools, but I didn't know that just by happenstance. This is God's plan, happenstance. So I went to Bowie State, a historically black school, on a track scholarship because I was actually pretty good in track. But technically at a D2 school, it was coined under academic scholarship.
Okay.
So all I had to do was keep my grades up. And I remember particularly her was almost like she was my check-in. I called her every day. She said, "Are you studying?" This is a girlfriend now. This is a girlfriend that's 18, 19, a young lady with just the maturity, wisdom of someone so mature. Are you studying? You better, you say you want to be with me, blah, blah, blah. You want to come to JMU. I don't see that you're doing it. I was like, oh, dang, she don't call me out. So my first semester at Bowie, 2.5 GPA. It wasn't good. She called me out, Dean's List every other semester.
Wow.
Dean's List. And then I transferred to JMU like I wanted to go off the break because I had a chip on my shoulder for getting waitlisted. And that's when I knew, when you say that connection, it had nothing to do with white or black. It was someone that genuinely wanted me to be a better person. And she's still like this today. I call her Naggy Maggie. She nags me. So,
Naggy Maggie, I love it.
So whatever that stereotype is, I hate that stereotype. Like, oh, you with a white woman because you can tell her what to do and all that stuff. I was like, I must have picked the wrong white woman then because I didn't get one that does whatever I say or whatever. But it was legit, not white or black. It was someone. It was spirit. It was her emotional intelligence. Because of her, I got into counseling as a field. It was because she was she's a social worker. It's because of her we learned how to talk. She used to not let me when I would shut down and not talk to her. She'd poke until I talked to her. And it was someone that actually listened to me. And so I think if she was a purple alien, I'd still be with her. And that's not even no shade because it was her personality. It was her drive. It was someone that actually makes me a better person. Just happened to be that she was white. But I think I would add this layer to it. And I think this is very important, especially with people in interracial relationships. Her father is Jewish, and he is a civil rights activist. He's worked in nonprofits, advocating for healthcare and equality his whole career. Her mom is a social worker. So even though they were white, they've had these discussions. So when I brought up identity and blackness and all this stuff, she never minimized, yo, Maggie, I don't feel comfortable in this space, blah, blah, blah. She never was like, oh, just forget about it. It's America. Like she literally was, I hate the term woke, but she was aware of things going on. So I would say, I don't think I would just be with any old white person. It had to be someone that could match my values, recognize my identity, recognize what's going on with me, have empathy. Obviously, they can't walk a mile in your shoes, but know that they can and acknowledge their privilege. She acknowledges her privilege every day as a social worker working with kids of different races all the time. So I don't think I was attracted to Maggie just because she was white. It was more like who she is as a person. And I think those values are, I wish, for any partner should be applicable to any partner. Does that person see you as you and your identities? Does that person also see your values? Does that person also listen to you? So that's how me and Maggie, and she was just so mature, like legit. Like I told her I got her when I was 18, like legit. Like I was so surprised as someone that managed her own bank account. I was like, yeah, she was like a grown up when I was like, yo, why are you acting so grown up? We're 18, it's crazy.
And and I appreciate you really being honest and kind of sharing that with us because, and again, I've interviewed brothers who are in interracial relationships and all of that, but we've never really gone into the nuances of it before, right? I mean, so guys who are married to women who are outside of, being black, we've never really kind of gone really in depth into the reasons and the rationales and all of that and the influences because there are perspectives. There are a lot of perceptions. This within the black community that the moment that decision is made, there are all these assumptions that, it's because she does this or it's because, what did Kanye say? When he get on, he gonna leave your ass for a white girl type deal. I mean,
and that's crazy because you say with privilege, if you look on a piece of paper, my parents, were like technically, not say more accomplished, but did different things. I mean, both our parents have single family homes. Both our parents are middle class, but a retired colonel and a doctor, on paper, if you didn't know they're black, they were technically more, because I don't want to have there's no shade.
I got you.
I celebrate but you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's different, like that gold digger mentality. She says it all the time. She's like, his parents got more money than my parents, kind of that, you know what I'm saying? So it was different like that. So you're right, like recognizing those things.
But the thing is, I'm really, happy that you were able to open that up, because again, there are nuances and we are not monolithic, meaning like everybody's experience is not the same. And we got to have spaces, especially as Black men. This is Black Fathers Now. Right. So Black fathers really is all about the fact that you're a Black man and you're raising kids. So whether you're raising that, like I am married to a Black woman and we're raising, Black kids, or whether you're married to someone who is, of another race or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're still a Black man. So you're still a Black father. And there's a diversity in who we are. Yes. And we need to be able to open ourselves up. But we also need to be able to ask questions and go back and forth and share so that folks don't assume. Because at the end of the day, assumption, the whole definition of assumptions, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, right?
Yeah, I like that.
I don't want people to assume, and you have the platform and you've done so with sharing your story. And that kind of helps people to understand some of your background and some of your nuance, which I think is extremely powerful. We all need to tell our own story, right? If you don't tell your own story, what's going to happen? Somebody else is going to tell it for you. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to get it wrong.
That's the match. That's that perception, right?
That's it.
If I don't have my own perception of who I am, I'll let other people dictate for it.
That's
it. They're going to make a mold. I would say also identity, too, is that we had to have a firm discussion of how we consider where boys are.
Whoa, slow down. You said you and your wife had to have a firm discussion on what your boys are?
Yeah, what not are, like firm identities, but like just in general, like what we cultivate, what we encourage, what we think about, because we don't want that confusion. And so, like, for instance, my wife she fully acknowledges, she likes to use the word people of color, which is fine with me. I'm not going to debate whether it's people of color or not. I say they Black. We Black.
So, look, that's the new PC term, and it's interesting. And again, that's something I think we have to own, the fact that, look, we're African American, we're Black, regardless of whether it's people of color and all the different terms. The world's going to look at you and see, like, yes, they have curly hair, yes, they might be light skinned, but they some little Black boys.
Exactly. And I was about to say that we talked about this earlier. When you think of Barack Obama, what do you call him?
He's a Black man, but
his mom is white and his dad's from Kenya or whatever. When we look at J. Cole, who's my favorite rapper, shout out to J. Cole, he considers himself Black. And his mom's white and his dad's Black. So I think I say this part to say, my boys may be light skinned or lighter skinned, but I'm telling you right now, they do not look like white boys, one. And I try to think about it in the mindset, if they got pulled over by the police, how they gonna be treated. When my son is during the summertime, he just looks like light skin. He's very dark. He lightens up in the winter, but I know when he gets older, his identity is going to be firm in Blackness. And so I need to equip them, and my wife is on board, saying people of color or not, but she's on board of us equipping our children to be firm in these identities, because we do not want, one, like you said, the world to dictate their own narrative, and two, I don't want them to think that they have a certain amount of privilege and get checked.
Absolutely.
Like, it'll be such the first time they think they can act like their own friends, and they're the only one that gets knocked to the ground. And, stuff. Like, I remember this one time was like, if little Johnny sets the dumpster on fire, and they laugh, he's being rambunctious. I said, you better not set that dumpster on fire, because they're gonna call you a menace. You know what I'm saying? So like, you got to realize early on that you can't do the certain things that little Johnny can do. And in this situation, Johnny's a little white boy, if you can't picture it.
I think everybody, again, this is Black Fathers Now, so the brothers listening know exactly what you're talking about. But I appreciate you again sharing that you all are actually having those conversations, because we all know within Black households, I mean, this is something that is starting to get traction outside of the Black community. It's kind of like a new thing for those outside. But within the Black community, we were all raised with, look, you can't do the same things the white boys do. Mike, you got to be better than the other ones because you might not get the same opportunities. When you get pulled over, no, you cannot argue. You cannot fuss. You cannot do this. You have to operate in a certain way. And these are unique realities of this duality of living in the United States of America. I mean, that's just a reality, right? I mean, I think we need to be aware of these and we need to be prepared for those. But then the flip side of it, we also cannot be so hardened by that we then cannot go out and seek opportunities and be the best version of ourselves. And 100%. I think that's something that some of us struggle with because we become so hardened to our experiences, rightfully so, because some scenarios are just challenging, right? But we cannot allow that hardening to keep us from being all that we're supposed to be and living out our calling or living out that thing that we're supposed to live out to impact the world for generations to come. So it's like this balance that, and that's the whole concept of when you talk about being Black and the challenge of it, it's a challenge. But I think, what was it, Will Smith or somebody had a quote that said something like, how do you go and fight dragons without allowing it to harden you and you then have a hardened heart, something loosely connected to it.
Someone said that being a Black man in America is like living your life on All Pro and Madden. It's a meme. So it's just
living your life like All Pro in Madden. So for those that don't play video games, who've never played Madden, All Pro is like the top tier. That's like the most skilled level of playing Madden.
And it doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean that you're the most skilled playing that game. It means just the difficulty is turned all the way up.
All the time. Every play is all the way turned up.
So I love that meme because it doesn't say your skill level, it just says that, you have to be aware that, you're playing a game or the game of life, supposedly, on a little bit of a harder setting. And for people, I've had some white friends that say, oh, that's not true. Just be, be yourself, Phil. And I had to have some check-in conversations like, no, man, I know you love me as Phil. You love me as Philip Wilkerson. But, just be aware, man, this is the education piece. Like, there is systematic things. And I've had to have these conversations. And also the biggest allies, Maggie's had to have these conversations with other white folks. And I've had to check Maggie a few times, and I say the few times I had to check her, it's like, I don't know if I should come to this all alpha event. I might be the only white person, And I told her, I said, you know what, Maggie, let's be real. We talked about this all the time. How many times do you take me to one of your events and I'm the only Black person? You see me, I'm used to that. I've gotten up to that. And she has enough awareness, but you're right.
What's interesting about that is the concept of buying into the culture. Right. It's the full buy-in to the culture in the sense that, folks who are not Black don't always understand that, there are situations in which I might be the only Black face in the room. There are times in which my wife and I go to a restaurant and we look around and we're the only Black couple in the restaurant. There are situations in which that's how, navigating, living life in this skin. Those are the realities that you have to learn to face, to learn to deal with. And but then the flip side of that, rarely is that situation reversed. And so it's interesting that you all had that conversation.
We had to. We had to have I've seen interracial couples that don't have this. And honestly, it's affected their relationship. Just a white person, I would say the white person in the couple not acknowledging their privilege with that Black person. I was like, I can't imagine this. Like that would just be a constant struggle. That'd be just as much as a financial struggle or infidelity struggle. Quite honestly, like someone that can't rock with my identities would be just as much as someone cheating on me all the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's a very firm deal breaker. It would have been a deal breaker. Early on in this relationship, if I didn't have someone that when they constantly check me in regards to things I think about myself, that would be a deal breaker. It's like someone that has completely different values. I've known people that were dating before, and I don't know about your political audience here, but I've had interracial relationships where I know the white person was a supporter of Trump, the Black person was, just not Trump, but not really Hillary, but just not Trump, and that relationship and value system deteriorated because the ideology of how they view race and privilege was so off that it didn't match. So. We had to have these conversations, whether they're awkward, whether they're weird. That's the only way we're going to have a healthy, loving relationship, and checking that and checking those times where, like I said, I have to check myself internally, but we also have to check your perception of it. And I think just along with race, just along with money, sex, your sex life, money, how you rate. Race needs to be an integral part of relationships, that discussion. Race does, a religion does, your faith, your values. You cannot have a sustainable, healthy marriage or fatherhood or parenthood if you're not constantly having these things, having these discussions. That's inside the bubble of the family. Like, obviously we're doing it on a podcast, but I have to have these kind of discussions at home.
And I think what you just mentioned is something that whether you're, so some of the brothers that are listening that maybe are in an interracial relationship, these are things that need to be talked about. But even if you're not in an interracial relationship, these are conversations that need to be talked about. I mean, my wife and I, we're both African-American. We're both blackity black. You know what I'm saying? But yet we still talk about race on a regular basis. Yes. You know what I'm saying? We have to, because at the end of the day, these are things that you're going to encounter. And it's not about, again, going out and becoming hardened to the situations in the world. It's about being prepared to deal with them.
I like
right.
That.
So it's the whole concept of, it's like going to the gym. It's like, I don't want to go and beat somebody up, but I hit the punching bag at the gym on a very regular basis so that if I need to throw them things, I can. I don't go out with the notion of I want to throw them things, but please believe me, if it came down to it, Mike D can throw them things. And
it's karate. It's karate.
Yes.
In karate, they teach you self-defense. In karate, they teach you, even in the mantra of karate, they say, we're going to learn how to fight, but we want you to avoid fighting at all costs. This is the last resort. So you're preparing yourself karate-wise. You're a karate master. I'm gonna call you Dragonfly Jones. I'm
gonna karate-size you.
Yes. But the point is, be prepared. It's almost those things. Anything. Prepare for the worst with the hope that you never have to use it.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think, fellas, that's something that you really need to put a pin in. Prepare for the worst, even if you never have to use it, but just prepare for it. That's the concept of insurance. Why do you have life insurance? Yes, you use health insurance for other things, but the reality is, from a catastrophic care perspective, you have health insurance. Insurance, the concept of insurance is, I don't want to have to use it, but should I need it, it's there. And so I think that's the concept of having these conversations about race. But then also, money and marriage and sex and religion and, raising kids and, all of this type of stuff, values. We have to have these conversations. But one of the things that I think, going back to your specific story, is that when we have assumptions, we need to find safe spaces in which we can ask these questions so that we can get clarity. Because I think this conversation that you and I are having is going to help give clarity for a brother who automatically assumes that when he sees another brother with someone outside of his race, this is what's going on. Or maybe a sister, because ladies listen to this too. They want to learn about how we think and all of that. So maybe a sister that sees a brother that way, her automatic assumption may be something, find a safe space in which you can have a conversation and you can learn, because you come to realize that what I assumed, it might be true, because there are situations in which people get on and leave your ass for a white girl. There are scenarios like that. Yeah. But the reality is that's not every situation. Just like every black man is not identical. We're not monolithic in our experience, in our desires, in our approach, in our gifts, in our talents. The same thing comes in regards to people in relationships. Ask the question, get clarity.
Well, I would say one of the main things too is that my strong friendships with one of my best female friends, Shay. She's, she a Deltas. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying Deltas are my favorite, but I don't care.
My wife's a Delta, so you'll be all right.
All right, I'm gonna get in trouble.
But my mama's an AKA. My mama's an AKA.
My mom and sister are too. So
okay,
whatever. So, but the point is, I'm saying there is that Shay knows who I am she's one of my high school friends, and she knows who I am as a black man. And she also knows who Maggie is because they're friends. And so she's able to see who I married as a person. And so I think the key word is right there is the person part, like getting to know that person and having those spaces and realizing, okay, Maggie, quote unquote, is not like the rest of the white girls, as you put it, because she knows where Maggie's values are and things like that. I kind of joke with Maggie. I was like, yeah, because we had a couple white white members there was a white AKA and a white Delta at JMU. Mm-hmm. I said, man, you should have joined that shit online, man. Being one of them, you could have been one of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what she's but she's anti everything. She's like, I don't even want to be a part of a white sorority. So she's an independent. She's like, I don't want to do none of that stuff.
She's me find me for sure.
Yeah,
right?
100%. I was like, but if you wanted to, I'm sure you could be a Delta. You know what I'm saying? She's like, no.
No,
and it's like you could be AKA either way. She's like,
either way, I know.
She's like, I don't want to be in no organization. I didn't want to be in Tri Delta. You know, the white fraternity. I was like, okay, whatever. I ain't gonna drop it. But I just know that when people really get to know her as a person, mm-hmm. They drop that stereotype of why I'm with her because they see what it is. But it's a space allowed to. And, you know, I think a lot of times you just gotta get to know people mm-hmm. and hang out with them and not just look on the surface what you see on the surface.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm gonna ask you a question. I mean, again, y'all have been together for, you know, umpteen years, forever now. Yeah. And, you know, you're married, you know, healthy marriage, you got 2 beautiful boys, all of that. Is there ever a scenario or an environment that together you all feel uncomfortable being in an interracial relationship?
Hell yeah. Like,
really?
The first time she got, can I say the N-word?
Yeah. Say whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, so a quick scenario. When I was in college at Bowie State in Bowie, Maryland, so this is Bowie, Maryland, right? Mm-hmm. I was at a grocery store and, you know, I was kissing on her and hugging on her in the grocery store. And she said, stop. This white guy's staring at us. And I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, whatever, stop. Kissing on her. And we were 18-year-old kids, right? Mm-hmm. And this dude was an old dude, like 60-something. So we walk out that grocery store, and as we leave, he just pulls his car up, rolls his window down, and goes, "Nigger lover," and rolls off.
Wow!
And I was like, damn, that's kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. But for me, I've been called the N-word before, so I was like, whatever. And she just started crying, like Maggie started crying. Sorry, Maggie. And I think that was like, wow, she got, you know, that sucks, you know, like that sucks. And so there's instances where that was when we were kids, and this dude's a grown man. He took the time out of his day to like roll his window down and yell that to my wife. He didn't say it to me too. He was addressing her. Mm-hmm. And so that sucked. And so we were not cautious, but we noticed you go to certain places and certain pockets, country places, and we're sitting together and we see people just staring at us, staring at our boys. So yeah, I mean, it still happens, but that was probably the most extreme example. That roll down the window thing was probably the worst thing that happened. And that was when I was 18 years old. So I don't think anything that extreme had happened before in regards to Maggie getting called things and stuff. But the stares and just the looks, that happens a lot of places. Different
so I guess the question then is like, how do you prepare yourself for the stares and all of that when you're in various places? Because again, and it's interesting because even in 2019, where it's not uncommon to see interracial relationships, you know, it's still one of those things where I would assume that, you know, you still get stares and, you know, kind of the looks or whatever. How do you mentally prepare yourself for it? And do you ever get kind of fed up? Meaning like, you know what, it's time for this. Let's just leave, you know?
No, I don't. No, actually, quite honestly, I don't. Actually, I kind of just don't care anymore about the space part. But what I am cognizant is that, you know, when we're enjoying a meal, like that guy with the kissing and all that stuff, maybe chill on the PDA. I don't know, a little bit. Order food and just be a normal person. I have just a right to be there just as much as anyone else. But it won't stop me from going anywhere. It doesn't stop Maggie from going anywhere. It doesn't stop us from going to different spaces, all black, all white. I was just so happy, you know, like I was just awarded recently a 40 under 40 Black alumni gala. And we went to this really fancy gala with all these other Black alumni, and Maggie, and very few people were few white people at this event. It was just an honor. And I wanted her to be at that space. I wanted her to see Black achievement. And she had literally, there was no question. Even when I said I got this, she's like, yeah, I'm so happy for you. We're going to the. So it's like just being yourself and going to these events anyway. You're just going to do it. Just do it. You know.
Being yourself. That's the key. Yeah. And you know, and it's interesting, man. I'm so thankful for your transparency and you being open to sharing with us this journey. But how is some of this, like all of this, you know, growing up and some of these identity issues and trying to fit in and the marriage, relationship, and the kids and all of that, how has this all come full circle to impact you as a father? But then also, how has it come full circle to influence you to launch Positive Filter, your platform?
Oh, so I think this identity stuff, I don't know, it's intertwined. But when I went a long time ago and started the podcast, I started it because I just like to do motivational stuff, and I was doing YouTube videos in my car, which were kind of whack. And I realized, hey man, I like to talk and I don't really like to do videos, so maybe I'll just turn this into a podcast. So that's about as simple as it. And then I started from my Ill Phil Awards and helping people and whatever. And Ill Phil Awards, it's a whole nother story. But what I learned in my studies is like, wow, there's a science to happiness. I mean, I'm nerding out. I love to study happiness and well-being. I know that, loneliness and social isolation hits the same pain receptors as physical pain. I'm like, wow, that's the craziest nerdy thing I ever heard. But well-being and all that stuff is something I really can dive into. And then I realized an integral part of well-being, there's so many layers, but there's one is well-being and identity. You can't feel well in yourself if you're not sure of yourself. You can't give to others until you feel good in yourself. So that's one. That's how it intertwines. And then also, additionally, with being Black and knowing yourself and social justice. Social justice and caring about the world and well-being are interconnected so well. You cannot say, I am a proponent of happiness or pursuit of happiness if you see physical racism, classism, all that stuff intertwined in society, because then, therefore, you're acknowledging that there's unfair advantages to pursuing happiness. So over time, in my pursuit of learning about happiness, kind of brought me back to race. In my pursuit of being happy and learning about happiness and well-being, it brought me back into centering myself and my racial identity, because I cannot be well if I don't have that integrated. I cannot be well if I don't care about equal rights and civil rights and gay rights and human rights, because they're so intertwined. Like the pursuit of happiness as a social, you should be, if you are a proponent of well-being for all humanity, then you must be a proponent for social justice and racial equality and all that stuff too. It's intertwined. They're not separated. So in my pursuit of being happy and learning about it, has brought me to having these discussions about race with my wife and kids. Has brought me up to this discussions of becoming the faculty advisor for the NAACP. I never thought I'd be a NAACP card holder. It's brought me actually to Alpha in general. I joined Alpha later, and all the causes in the community. So just in my pursuit of that positive filter, it just coincidentally brought me to that. And they're not segmented. They're intertwined.
Wow. And so Positive Filter is your platform, right? It's your podcast, and and how often do you release an episode, and how can folks check you out, man?
So I release an episode every Monday. And then when I'm feeling frisky, I do another, I call them bonus episodes, but that's just when I got someone that I couldn't really get a hold of for so long, and just take their, put them on my podcast on Friday. So usually bonus episodes on Friday, but standard, you will expect an episode will be every Monday. It's on all the different podcast apps. Positive Filter, but the filter is spelled with a PH because I'm very clever. So PH.
Toot your own horn there, brother.
Yeah. And it's got all the different Instagrams and Twitters and all that stuff. You can follow at Positive Filter. I try to keep everything the same. And I do Q&A episodes every now and then. I throw those in there because I like to engage the listeners. So sometimes I'll do like I have a Google form for questions. People can put their questions. I table them. And I do a whole Q&A episode to get back to the listeners, check them out, and answer their questions, because that's a lot of this is the engagement with the listeners. And it's just been fun. I never, quite honestly, when I did this, I tell anyone that wants to be a future podcaster, I didn't do this with no ideas of getting money. I mean, I was getting no money. I still don't get no money for this podcast. I shared, it's just a voice, a platform, and sharing ideas. And it's just helped me practice. I always wanted to speak and get better and more confident. And I figured if I could do that on a mic with listeners like 1 or 100, then maybe I'd get more comfortable talking in front of people, an audience, a real audience in their face. So the podcast has literally just been my way of just growing professionally and growing as a person. It's just been really fun. It's really still just a really fun thing for me.
So fellas, definitely make sure you go to any of the podcast platforms and subscribe to Positive Filter, and filter spelled Philter, Positive Filter. And oh Lord, see if you had the video.
But it's like filter, you know what I'm saying? That's just the PH for all the F things for alpha, you know what I'm saying? We can have first fam, all that.
Oh Lord,
you see how many layers that is? I'm so smart, man.
Yeah, oh boy. Okay, we'll leave that there. If you were looking at the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, so yeah, make sure to subscribe to Positive Filter on all the different podcast platforms and really check him out, man. And also on social media. So follow Positive Filter on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you listen to, or anywhere you do your social media stuff. Make sure to connect with Philip and let him know you heard about him on Black Fathers Now, because he's got an interesting story, and engage with the brother. As you see, he's open. He's honest. He'll let you know what's on his mind, what's on his heart, and he's open to share, because at the end of the day, he and I share a common thing in which we're both looking to make the next generation better. So we're looking to leave things better than we found them. And that's part of the reason that, a part of the inspiration behind Black Fathers Now. It's, dropping these nuggets of wisdom, bringing on insightful brothers that have stories and insight and things that can help us become the best men that we can be. And ultimately, the default to being the best men that we can be is Black fatherhood then goes from being okay to being excellent. And then excellence becomes a new standard in Black fatherhood. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So
I love it. And I was about to say, I didn't, in my shout outs and plugs, obviously I didn't get a chance to shout out and plug you. Mm-hmm. I found you by happenstance, and a podcast group me. Mm-hmm. Your title, it was just literally your title, like Black Fathers. Like, wow, that's me too. Mm-hmm. And I just started listening, and literally it's been a great resource for me. You're gonna be on my podcast when we get it together. Yeah. And I know how to use Zoom, but I want to. I learn things every day, but I want to let you know, like, as a appreciation and shout out and gratitude, your voice and your platform is very powerful and it's very helpful. It's a resource. When I meet new Black fathers, I definitely have a list of the podcasts that they should listen to, and yours is very much included as a resource for Black men to just, have a good resource. So, and I have it on my podcast app. I have you listed as fatherhood. I have a category called parenting. Mm-hmm. I have all kinds of different ones, and it's in there. So I got it. Yeah. So.
I appreciate you, man. Well, thank you so much, man. And definitely you as well. We got to make sure to continue to share yours, because your nuggets of wisdom, man, helps people to really reframe and think about life a little bit differently. And hearing some more of your backstory really gives some context as to where you're coming from, which is really dope. And I appreciate you again. That honesty, that transparency is really helpful. And I think it's going to help somebody listening to think about life a little bit different. But I think the big thing is it's going to maybe help somebody to engage with somebody a little bit differently and not assume. Ask the questions, get the understanding, get the facts, build the relationship, because you might become surprised to realize that there's some other things going on aside from what you see on the surface. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. I salute you, and I say thank you for spending time with us today on Black Fathers Now.
I love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, so fellas, as always, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com. Follow Black Fathers Now on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure to download, subscribe, share, leave some comments, leave some ratings. We love the ratings. Really leave some comments and ratings, because that helps us to grow in all the different rankings and stuff on these podcast metric things that we want to grow on. I guess, if you're interested in having me come out and speak, visit IamMikeDorsey.com. IamMikeDorsey.com. You can see clips of me speaking, rocking the crowd, doing what I do. But I'd love to come out and speak at your next event, at your university, anything. Just holler at me, man. IamMikeDorsey.com. And again, fellas, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And we'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.